Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of the premiere of Lupinranger vs. Patranger, or Patranger. It's not about a guy named Pat. And I think I finally organically said the names in the right order. I kept saying Pato versus Lupin for the longest time because I had to train myself to say Josh and Drake instead of Drake and Josh. But yay, premiere time! Honestly, this was a really, really good premiere, I thought. I was just mentioning on Twitter how I always kind of roll my eyes around this time of year because you always get, oh my god, this was the best Sentai ever! Like, you know, reactions based on the pilot. And it's always really funny to me because, as a whole, Sentai pilots are the most generic and forgettable and rushed episodes of the series. I've had some where I've overreacted to a little bit, but a lot of them are just so forgettable. Like, when I did my top worst and best PR premieres, I got several requests to do Sentai ones, which I will do at some point. But I have to rewatch them all because they're so forgettable. You know, PR ones I think are far more memorable, but the Sentai ones are usually really rushed and generic, like I said, and they always have to, especially in the last decade or so, maybe a little more, it seems like you can just feel the machinery turning and the checklist going off of what they need to show because of the toys that are on shelves. And so, as a result, by the time the series is over, I barely remember most things about the pilots. But this was a very well done pilot. I mean, in some respects, you could consider it a little rushed, but I didn't feel it was too rushed. I thought it was pretty well paced. It gave us a nice taste of the world, of some of the plot points, of the characters, without overwhelming us. And I also think they, like, toy-wise, I didn't really feel the machinery turning. Like, we basically only showed off the Changer. I mean, they showed off the little vehicles for a couple things, but because they're part of the Changer, I didn't feel like that was in your face or anything. And the only thing that could be considered maybe a little rushed in that respect is the Patrangers. I'm just gonna call them Patrangers. It feels less weird than the Patrangers. The Patrangers transforming at the end, because I kind of went back and forth on that. I'm like, on one hand, they could have saved it, but on the other, I think it was actually like the perfect like cliffhanger into next week. Because it almost would have been more awkward with the way they structured the episode for them not to have transformed. Like, it would have been one thing if they transformed like 5 minutes before and they tried to fit in a fight with them and to show off more about their stuff. That would have felt rushed. And if they didn't transform, it would have felt a little awkward to me too. Because I think this episode did a good job of showcasing both of them. So I think that, for me, it was ultimately perfect. The transformation was like basically the last thing that happened in the episode. It gets kids excited for the toy, like it can do this, but we didn't immediately show it all off, and it's going to lead into next week. And that was partly because like the way this was structured was, you got a taste of everybody, but I think this was primarily Lupin focused. Or at least it felt it was. You got a little bit of peek into the world of the Patrangers and what they're like, but they were kind of secondary. So that's why I think it was perfect that it showcased everything, but them transforming at the end was a good way of still keeping it sort of leaning towards Lupin, and then it looks like likely next week will lean towards Pato. But it was really awesomely structured. Like, we opened on the casino scene and the Lupinrangers crashed through in a really cool way. And we got a little bit of a civilian fight with them. We got a couple of those, actually, which was neat. And then a really cool scene where they blasted them and then they come out of the smoke all posed and cool. And the monster was like, the frog monster thing was like, he was like hidden in a human guy, like he was in a disguise. So it was a really cool opening scene because you got a kind of taste for the Lupinrangers feel. And then the Patranger showed up at the very end and we're like, damn you kids! And like that was the intro. And then we kind of got these couple scenes which just kind of gave you a taste of everyone's personality. I mean, I'm just going to use their ranger names until I learn all their regular names. But like, you know, we've already seen from the trailers, but Ichigo he's kind of a serious cop fellow, but right now his bit seems to be his like boiling frustration at the Lupinrangers. Lupin Red just kind of has a very fun kind of cocky personality, and I quite like him so far, and he's been fun. The other Lupinrangers, we get a little bit of a look at Yellow. She kind of has a bit of a lighter, quirky personality, and she's like working at the restaurant when we see her. I really like the scene when they were in the vents and she was just kind of snickering at the villain's plan. And I think the least the least, not focus isn't the right word, but the person we got the least read on was Lupin Blue, because he was like just working in the kitchen, and you just kind of get the feel of kind of the classic, you know, serious Blue type character, but like I just feel we got the least about him, because the most he stood out was like in the final fight when he was just sort of, you know, giving some of his classic serious Blue dialogue, but before that he was just kind of nondescript in the restaurant. In fact, like when they first showed the him, like it was just a quick scene of him like handing food off, and I wasn't paying attention that much, and I was thinking, oh, I wonder if he's a side restaurant character, but it was actually Lupin Blue. Green seems to be kind of like he's trying so hard to prove himself, like a little bit of a goofball, which you saw from the description, but like he's trying hard to prove himself, and he makes a couple comments about how, well, hey, aren't the Lupin Rangers helping, and Ichigo's like, ah, and you know, Pink seems a little bit bored with the job. It's kind of very in line with the descriptions we got, but she's just not bored with the job, but she's very kind of, you know, just like cool. Like she's like, yeah, whatever, man. Green, you do your thing. We got to see our mentor guy. What's his name? It's like, oh man, the black captain. Oh, I can't remember his name. It'll be on the screen. It's like Wilfred or something, or Carter. No, that's the other dude. No, but we don't get a whole lot of him other than just seeing him exist. I don't have too much of a read of his personality. It seems pretty average right now, but we'll obviously see more of that as it goes on. There just wasn't any distinct moment. Like a couple of the Rangers kind of got a distinct moment or line that gave you a clearer feel of their general persona, and I just didn't get that from him. Speaking of Carter, we saw the little robot dude, and there's, again, that's not too much read on him either. Like, he's just kind of a generic goofy robot. That could end up being a character that I'm either just indifferent to or that's really annoying, but there's just not enough there other than, hey, I'm the funny robot sidekick, and his arms fold out. At first he looks like he's amputated. What's really interesting is like the way the villains work. I mean, we've seen pictures of them before, but I really like the design of the main villain that really fits in with the whole like underground crime gang vibe, and basically it sets up a kind of interesting premise of why monsters are going to be attacking is that whoever like manages to take over humanity gets to become the new boss because he's retiring, which is kind of interesting, but also kind of confusing because I'm like, well, if he was such a big bad boss, wouldn't he have taken over humanity? Although maybe that wasn't his goal, and like it's just when he was trying to think of what's a really hardcore way I could come up with my successor, he'd be like, oh yeah, I'll just do like, let's take over the world. But that's a bit of an interesting premise. I really liked just seeing the base area they were in. I don't know if that's their base or if that was just a restaurant they were in, but like seeing all those monsters together very much reminded me of like Onyx and stuff from Power Rangers, and it's a different way to have a villain feel because usually they're in some sort of a spaceship or like secret evil base, but this one's like actual like a crime family feeling, and it's hard to tell now from the first episode, but they feel like they have a presence. And it's funny because I talked about how Ninja's villain presence felt like they were just operating out of a small shack. And this is kind of in that way, not a small shack, but they're operating out of like a normal building as opposed to a big spaceship. But they have a presence where I don't feel like it's a really small group that's not a threat, that's just like a rogue bunch of three. Like they feel like they have a presence, but like a different kind of presence than the usual villains. And I think that could be interesting, and I hope that's kept up. We also just get to meet the butler dude who works with the Lupin Rangers, and there's a lot of little exposition moments, but it kind of makes sense. I think it did a good job of laying things out. You get a little bit of about, oh, the great Lupin thief, and like how he was originally after these items, and this Lupin collection book, which no doubt there's going to be a premium Bandai of that eventually, and like it's kind of interesting because the Lupin collection item, they put it on the book and it like goes into it. It's like a reverse Beetleborgs. But so we got kind of exposition there, and there's a little bit of, I don't know if foreshadowing is the right word, because it's not like a crazy mystery, but it's more like just set up for the character story where Lupin Red's like, well, don't forget you made us a promise. So we're going to be finding something out about why they all started working for him. Speaking of that, when we get to the final conflict where they're going to stop this guy, the final guy of the episode, there's a scene where the monster like holds Blue and Yellow hostage, and there's a little flashback to a promise they all made to each other. So like I like that kind of sets up that we're going to be finding out backstory in a cool way that sort of gives you a foundation of the relationship between the three, but doesn't try to rush through all of it and sort of sets you up for future episode or episodes. And like he takes down the ceiling and just sort of trusts them to get themselves out. It was an interesting dynamic because I definitely get the vibe that they actually do care about each other, but I like the philosophy of, you know, instead of, oh, we gotta protect each other, teamwork and friendship, we're useless without each other, that they're like, yeah, if one of us or more of us falls, it's up to those remaining to carry out our main goal or our dream or whatever. And I think that's an interesting take on it, especially with so often Sentai and PR can send almost too far of a teamwork message where it makes you seem absolutely useless on your own. And I have no, like I said, I have no doubt that I feel like they actually care about each other, and that'll probably be a main focal point later. But for now, I just like the difference in philosophy. And then, you know, we get a look at their actual morph, which is really cool. They all actually got individual morph stuff. It's really cool, like the top hat goes on top and the bow tie. And I didn't know these little designs were bow ties until this episode, which is kind of funny. And they have a roll call with like a wanted poster bit, and it's a very simplistic roll call. Both of their roll calls are more simplistic, like kind of older ones are like Go Kaiser, where they just literally snap their fingers and say their name. It's not like an overly long one where they're like, the man who stands at the top of eating spaghetti in the Northwestern Mountains on a Tuesday. I am the guardian of all peace and justice, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, something blue. It's just like Lupin Blue. Like, so I kind of like that. And so, you know, we get to see them transform, a little action with their swords, which is cool. That sounded weird. And then, like I said, at the end of the episodes, the Patrangers show up, and we actually get to see a funny scene where the captain walks in, and he's like, the new toys have arrived. Very blatant there. And if I didn't honestly know that they didn't have changers. I thought we just didn't get a chance to see them change, but that he brought them the changers. I thought it was going to be like the Zords, but I guess they need those to transform, so I'm stupid. But it was interesting because when we first saw the pictures and just the first very basic information, I assumed the Patrangers were going to be the original ones to have the VS changer, and then the Lupinrangers somehow stole it or got it second, but it's like the opposite. Like, they got the morphers in the middle of the Lupinranger battle scene and then arrived at the end, and they were surprised that these guys had the changers and they transformed. They didn't get full-on individual morph sequences. I think we will get them for them, but this week was just a classic team morph. Basically what we saw in the trailer. Well, what's kind of cool, something I didn't notice before is, like, you know, we saw in the original one, like, their badges come down and go over them, but like when they shoot up, it's actually their police, like, fold-out badges that turn into the badge symbol and then morph, which was kind of cool. But I thought that was the perfect way to end it. But yeah, a little bit longer than I wanted to be because there was a lot of stuff I wanted to cover, but I thought this was a very cool pilot. I think it did a good job of balancing everything, gave us all the information we needed to know, gave us a taste of everybody and everything without making it feel too rushed. It felt like a genuine premiere and not a generic checklist like these so often can feel. And they also did a lot of cool things with his structure. Like, cinematography wise, there was some really cool shots, like at the beginning when they broke through the window, there's some cool stuff with the glass reflecting them. There was just a cool scene with when they suited up going out the Lupinrangers, like them putting on their gear. Just some really cool way that things were shot and some tones it gave things. And it's really funny because there's been a lot of talk about how Kyuranger and this show are kind of ushering in the next generation of Sentai, sort of doing things new, breaking from old traditions, but like, just the way this was shot and felt did very much remind me of older Sentai. I don't mean like the old Showa stuff, I mean like Dekaranger, Magiranger, just like the way the camera look felt, the cinematography of it, like, it very much felt like that. It'll be interesting to see if that tone feels like that, because it feels like something different inherently because of the structure. But it also just did give me that sort of classic feel. It's weird to call like Magiranger and stuff like older, but you know what I mean. But I just really liked the way it was shot. It made it feel unique, different. It had a feeling of, I don't know if professionalism is the right word, but like I said, usually these feel like rushed checklists. And there was bits of that, I guess, but other than that, it felt like a genuine pilot, which I feel is rare. Like, there are ones I remember enjoying, but I don't really remember them, and I think that I will remember this one later. And I hope they can keep that feel up to make it feel a little bit different and unique. Real quick intercut here because I forgot I wanted to do this. I mentioned before the premiere how I hadn't chosen a team yet. I think as of this episode, I am Team Lupin, just because I really like their characters so far, and I love everything about their aesthetics, even though I do like the Patranger suits. But I wanted to do a fun bit in every review, so long as it makes sense, but to call basically the team of the episode, like who I thought, whose team I would be on in this episode based on their performance. This week was obviously Team Lupin for me. I thought they were the ones that shined. But so if it makes sense for the episode, I would like to, in addition to the score at the end, sort of give a team of the episode based on, like, the MVPs, basically. So this week I thought it was hashtag Team Lupin. But yeah, longer than usual. These videos usually run about 10 minutes less. I'm sorry this was a little bit longer, but since it was the pilot. But very strong start. I hope this continues. I would give the season opener a 9 out of 10. Anyway, that's about it. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Dawson Ryder, signing out.